I gotta tell you, man, I may not think that this is a playoff team, and I certainly don't think that this is much of a Super Bowl team nonetheless. But I gotta tell you, the only way that I can think of a feasible way that this team can make any noise going, should they make the playoffs, is if this happens with the offense and if they continue to have the momentum that they've been having over the past couple of weeks. What is going on, everybody? I am Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram, link in the box below. So yes, I've been saying for weeks on end, I really don't think that this is a playoff team. I really don't believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers deserve to be in the playoffs, just because of the way that things were handled this season for the most part, with Mike Tomlin especially. Because, like, the main thing about Mason Rudolph in this video, and I'm going to touch up on him in this video, as he was officially named the starter for Week 18 against the Ravens. So at this point, that's like oh, well, no crap, he should be starting, because the offense has looked as good as it's been all season with Mason Rudolph in there. And I'll even go as far as say the offense hasn't looked this good since 2020. Okay? But, like, number one, with Mike Tomlin, it should not take him this long, much less to the final week of the season, where your playoff hopes are on thin ice right now, and you need to win, and you need a bunch of other things to happen in order to even to smell the playoffs. It should not take this long to realize that Mason Rudolph is the best option that you have as far as quarterbacks go with this team. And it's proven countless times. In the two starts, the Steelers have scored 64 points. And in two games, they've averaged 32. Double the amount of points that the Steelers were averaging with Kenny Pickett on the field. Now, do I think Mason Rudolph is a long-term stability quarterback? I still don't think so. But he is good enough to be the starter for this team for the short term. And who knows? Maybe if this, because there is a distinct possibility that this team is not going to go to the playoffs, all right? But say we miss the playoffs. What is your answer for quarterback in 2024? It should be to have Mason Rudolph be the starter for the whole season. And it should be to have Kenny Pickett, if you absolutely need to keep Kenny Pickett, you have to have him be your backup. Mitch Trubisky, forget about him. Okay? At this point, I would feel more confident with Trace McSorley at this point than Mitch Trubisky. All right? But you have to have Mason Rudolph be your starter for 2024. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. This offense is significantly better with Mason Rudolph in there. Why? Because with Mason, you have an identity with offense. You never had that with Kenny Pickett. Okay? Like with that throw that he had to George Pickens late in the game on Sunday. Do you think Kenny Pickett would have even remotely come close to keeping his composure in the pocket and gunning that ball at the trajectory that it was thrown for Pickens to make a catch like that? Do you think Kenny Pickett would have been calm and collected in the pocket like that when you saw the pressure come up to him and he had to make a throw like that? No, he wouldn't have. Because Kenny Pickett would have panicked. Kenny Pickett would have taken a sack. Kenny Pickett would have forced a pass. There is nothing showing me with Kenny Pickett that he's the guy moving forward with this offense. Mason Rudolph has shown that he's a risk taker. Mason Rudolph has shown that he's comfortable and he has his composure when he's in a tight situation, when there's the house rushing him or he's facing a blitz package. Mason Rudolph has shown that he's capable of stepping up in moments like that. And like I was saying about Tomlin, it should not take you this long into the season to realize that Mason Rudolph is your best option at quarterback right now. Now, is it realistic that the Steelers do draft a quarterback in 24 and maybe even 25, one of those 2 years? I don't think that's completely off the table. But if the Steelers don't go QB this coming spring, that tells me that they're confident enough that Mason Rudolph can be in there for the short term and be that quarterback until we are able to find another quarterback. Okay? But all Mason has to do, he don't have to go out there and throw for 350 yards and 5 touchdowns every single game. He doesn't have to light the world on fire. He doesn't have to play like Lamar Jackson did on Sunday. He doesn't have to play like prime Tom. Well, let's face it, Tom Brady was always in his prime. But he doesn't have to play like 2007 Tom Brady. He don't have to play like Peyton Manning. He doesn't have to play like mid to late 90s Brett Favre. He doesn't even have to be like prime Big Ben. All Mason Rudolph has to do is go out there and be the best QB that he can possibly be. All he has to do is lead the charge. And you've seen it with this offense over the past couple of weeks. They gel together. There's less drama. Players aren't acting out. Mason is not missing open guys. Mason is taking shots. He's taking risks. He's dropping dimes. The running game, flamboyantly good. I mean, we always knew the potential that the run game that this run game had. But I mean, Jalen Warren just continues to be a wrecking ball. And even with Mason Rudolph under center, I'm starting to get a revamped hope in Najee Harris. I went from being on the tipping point to calling this guy a bust to now having a newfound hope with him. Najee Harris has really upped up his game since Mason Rudolph has been the quarterback. And even the offensive line, with the exception of Mason Cole, who's a total scrub, okay? Even the offensive line has been playing better. Did you see the effort that the O-line was given when there were carries being made by Jalen and Najee, respectively? How about that touchdown run that Najee Harris had when he dragged the entire Seahawks defense to the pylon and scored? That's what I'm... Or how about even Broderick Jones absolutely flattening a Seahawk on Sunday? That's what I'm talking about with this identity. And it's up to Tomlin to realize that. And it's up to him to say that, you know what, Pickett? You're just the backup at this point. Okay? You're too injury prone. You aren't sustainable enough to be a starting quarterback, and your stats justify it. You're not going to be the starter. Mason Rudolph is going to be the starter for the rest of the way. I mean, after all, Mason Rudolph is, believe it or not, the longest tenured quarterback with the Pittsburgh Steelers as of right now, as of this recording. It's crazy to think about, considering that Big Ben was our quarterback for 18 years. But Mason Rudolph is currently the longest tenured quarterback with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And secondly, it's just that the way the Steelers have gone about this season with, you know, the unconvincing wins and, you know, taking opponents lightly, Tomlin being outcoached by first-year head coaches and being outplayed by rookie QBs, it doesn't make me feel 100% confident going into Sunday, even though I do suspect the Ravens will be resting starters Sunday because they have the first seed locked up. So they're at the point to where, you know what, they can afford to throw this game away. It's going to do nothing for them. All right? I mean, after all, remember back in 2019 where the Ravens had the first seed locked up? They had home field advantage clinched. We had to go in there in week 17. They rested all their starters, and we got smacked around by Robert Griffin III and the Ravens' backups in that game. Who's to say that that doesn't happen again this coming Saturday? All right. So those are the two biggest reasons why I don't think this team is going to be a playoff team, and why I still stand by my statement that they don't deserve to be a playoff team. But it's up to us as fans to realize that this momentum that the Pittsburgh Steelers have at the end of the season can carry over into next year, and that starts with Mike Tomlin putting his foot down, really coming up with being the head coach of this team. And it has to start with him realizing that Faulkner and Sullivan cannot be the OC or co-sharing the OC with this team. He has to look at them and go, guys, I appreciate your efforts with being interim, but you guys are just going to go back to your old jobs as QB coach and running back coach. We're going to go outside the organization and get an offensive coordinator. If you have to keep Sullivan and Faulkner, which I'm on board with, okay? I'm on board with keeping Faulkner and Sullivan, just not as offensive coordinator. Put them back as QB coach and running back coach, and you have to go outside your comfort zone for once and get an offensive coordinator, a real one. Not a knock at them, but you have to get a real one. One who has experience. One who's capable of working with this offense. One who's capable of coming up with schemes that can really make this Steeler offense dangerous in 2024. You want a comparison with how I think the Steelers can transition from this season into next season? Take a look at the end of 2013. Le'Veon Bell was emerging as a star running back, and Antonio Brown was really coming on the scene as that true number one wide receiver that he could be, and Big Ben was still in his prime at the time. We knew the Steelers were not going to make the playoffs that season because they got themselves in too much of a hole. But there was hope for 2014, and they didn't disappoint in 2014 as they had the best offense in the league that following season. 10 years later, you want to fast forward? Look at the end of 23. Steelers have no momentum on offense. All of a sudden, Mason Rudolph comes in, and he guides the Steelers to the two best weeks of offense that they've had in years. And you also have potential with it as well. You got Pat Freiermuth. You got George Pickens. You got Jalen Warren. You got Najee Harris. You got players who need to just mature a little bit more, and you got players who need to marinate a little bit more and grow and develop more. But you also know that you have a quarterback that can work well with it, and you need to go and get an offensive coordinator. Sure, the Steelers may not make the playoffs, but at least you have a foundation that's being established with this offense. And that's why, for the umpteenth time, I'm sitting down here saying that this offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024 is going to be a very important one, because it's going to determine where the Steelers are going to be in the very near future. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Mason is starting Saturday. Let's finish up the year. Let's finish up the season on a high note. And we'll see what happens as far as the playoffs goes. But personally, I just don't think this team should be playing extra football after Week 18. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. I am Mac, checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.